Hello, I'm your piano tutor Gabriel, and today we're looking at Pajaro Triste from the Impressiones Intimas by Federico Mompou. In addition to this video is a free guide that's down in the description below. It will cover everything that we talk about today and some stuff that we didn't have time to get through. It has a load of helpful stuff and is a perfect companion to read alongside the video tutorial. Again, that's down in the description. So this piece is one of the middle movements from Impresiones Intimas, Intimate Impressions from Mompou. And that title itself, it sums up so much about his music. His music is impressionistic and it is very, very intimate. This piece is dedicated to Celia Sogniol. She was a writer and a friend of Federico Mompou's. This piece, the title literally translates to sad bird or sorrowful bird. And, this is one of his early compositions, and it really sums up what is so special and so beautiful about Mompou as an artist. His music is impressionistic. It's just about, long lost love. It's about regret. It has this aristocratic poise and aloofness. It's minimalistic. Every note is incredibly important and crucial. Everything is reduced down to its bare bones. And yet within that, the harmonies are rich and beautiful, and the melodies are incredibly expressive. It has an immediacy and an honesty and also a great feeling of detachment. Sometimes his music is angular, it's primitive and modernist. Other times it's really luscious and beautiful, and it's all pulled together. And this piece, if you haven't played Federico Mompou before, this is a really great place to start. So first, let's go through and let's just look at the form before we do anything else. The piece is it has these long phrases, these paragraphs, and they all end the same. And they are an A, B, C, A, B, C, and then A repeated at the very end. So this is a kind of, a double trinary with a round at the end, or it's maybe a kind of rondo, but with an extra section in the middle. But either way, the whole piece is based off of this one motif. We come down a third, and then up a tone. The whole piece is just based on it. And then here change a little bit, but then back. This is an inversion of it. So the whole piece is based on that. One thing we notice about our notation is there are these uses of tenuto. So when you hear Mompou play himself, he has this very affected style. It may be to do with the fact that he was just quite old when he recorded all of his works. But he has this style where it feels like almost every single note has a tenuto mark on it, and almost every single note is broken. So, what do I mean by those two things? First, the tenuto mark means we lean on a note, we give it extra weight. So we press slightly harder down on it, and we give it a little bit of extra time and space to breathe. In Mompou's performances, it feels like almost every single note has this, that the flow of the music is always being interrupted by this, this constrained emotion. So the music itself is so tightly composed, and the form is so condensed, and yet within that, the harmonic and melodic material are incredibly expressive. So in his playing, what you find is that the flow of the music is always being interrupted by this simmering undercurrent of emotion that runs through all of it. this may also do with when he learnt piano, the kind of moment in history in the piano technique when he was young and when he was in Paris, that was happening then. To modern pianists, to many, especially those who only are really aware of written recordings and not historical accounts of piano playing, sometimes it can sound a little bit too much. But that's what the tenuto is. The broken chord. Sometimes in jazz this is called back phrasing. You can have forward phrasing as well. But what it means is basically the melody is rhythmically displaced. So the melody is slightly behind every other note. So if I were to overemphasize it here, like that, so here, our melodic note is dragging behind the beat. This gives a kind of independence to the parts. I'd recommend doing it with this piece. Depending how much you choose to do it is up to you. Obviously we're voicing nearly always the top line, so the top line is always going to be dragging behind a little bit. But there are some parts where we voice the middle lines that we'll get onto. We can talk about those. So those are two things to think about, our tenutos and our broken. It's as if we're breaking the chord. Some people call it breaking the melody, and some people call it back phrasing. But imagine them as like rolled chords. So let's go through. We're largo and we're pianissimo. We're at a crotchet 46. And this is a kind of unique notation. You don't really see this first phrase. Now these first two little legato marks over this and here. Here, let's just go through some fingering. We're doing 5, 3, 2 and 4. And then here we can do 1, 3 and 1. And then come over with 1, 2, 5. Keep the 1, 3, 5. Keep the 3 and 5 down and we come down like that. So this whole chord is happening on the second beat of that bar. Now, what does this tenuto mean? It's a legato mark and it has a tenuto over it. Here, this means the whole phrase has a tenuto. So it's as if the anacrusis is emphasized and is given more rhythmic weight, and we're just suspending before we hit the downbeat. And it's not a specific note. Later we do have that, but here the whole phrase is suspended. And here again. So I'm overemphasizing a little bit, but you get the idea here. Then we have a tenuto on these top chords here, which are answering. And it says expressive underneath, and the melody here is in the middle part, the bottom part or the middle part. So, and then we have this chromatic alteration with the D natural from before. So we can bring this out and we can push the dynamic a little bit just to bring this out and make it a little bit more expressive here. Then the music carries on, much the same as before with the melody on top. So we emphasize the top again here. And here we have, again, a tenuto over it all. And we resolve, not down to the bottom octave here, but up to the C sharp and the 5th here. So here we're going to have a push and release, push and release. So heavier here, and then we release here, like that. Heavier here, and then we release here, exactly like that. Then to end the phrase, and every phrase ends like this, we have a tenuto on every single note. So we can really spell this out. Pause, nice and soft. Now, here the music starts to pick up a little bit, and we have a kind of inversion of our theme happening here. We're at a sforzando. Now, no other dynamics are written in the piece other than a piano and a pianissimo. But the sforzandos they're almost, technically they are just an accent, but the way that he's using them here, I suspect what they're supposed to be is a dynamic. So they're kind of still within a soft piano. There's an expressive section where the dynamic has been pushed higher, but we're still keeping a character of softness to it. So let's just go through some of our fingering for the right hand. We're going to start on finger 3 here. And then here, 1, 2, and 5. Starting to accelerate. Reset here. 5, 3, 4, 5, 3. And then the same. 5, 3, 4, 5, 3. Reset. 5, and then 2 here. So we have enough space to jump up here. And 4 at the top. Like that. Now, this is going to be at a higher dynamic. We start to accelerate, then we crescendo, then we have a little rit at the end. And then here we have these kind of inverted sevenths without the fifth in the bottom. You can just walk down, so you can pass the notes over to help join them up, you see. And we have enough time to do that. Now let's talk about this. We're at a higher dynamic, we come back down, and this is the first time we have this little chirp, this little echo. Sounds a little bit like a bird chirping. So let's go through. Back phrasing. Rit here, slowing down. And this whole phrase has a tenuto over it. And then we have a piano. So this can still be loud. Later we'll have a diminuendo hairpin, but not now. Then we have this piano. Every note. And then pianissimo for this, the first one of these little echoes. Really beautiful. So put down your una corda pedal. This is what I'd recommend. It also creates a tonal shift. So it's not just the volume that's an echo, but the music actually kind of recedes into the background like that. Really beautiful. And you can even phrase it, shape it a little bit so it tails off at the end. And then this phrase, it has it before with the fifths in the bass and then with this chord here. This is a very common thing that Mompou uses in lots of his pieces. He'll have a chord and he'll tie it to nothing. So when chords are tied over to empty space, what this means is that it's basically indistinct. What I would recommend here is that you blur them one beat. So you view them as blurring over the next beat and you can reset the pedal. Everywhere in this piece, that's where it happens, and the harmony changes on the next one. So when you see these in the bass, I mean this parallel fifths, this beautiful medieval kind of harmony he has at the bottom, just have them blur over the next beat. So actually let's go through this, the pedaling for the first bit. Keep it down. And then here we can reset. And then keep this fifth down, blur it with the next. Like that. That's how I do it. So these are like bells. This is like a perfect bell notation. And in fact, Mompou, his family, his old Catalonian family, they were bell manufacturers through the medieval period. And there was a time in his life he ran the family business of producing bells. I mean, the bells that are so influential on so many composers, you know, Ravel, Scriabin, more recently a figure like Arvo Part. And they have a very particular meaning within the Iberian Peninsula and obviously within Mompou's own life. So these bells, we want a really nice bell-like feel to this. And then a bell ringing out. A little chirp of a bird. Really soft. Now next comes the most expressive phrase here. And what I was talking about earlier with the music being so constrained and so tight, and yet always feeling like it needs to escape itself, I think this is really summed up in this phrase here, where as sforzando, what I choose to do is just push the dynamics a little bit, since, you know, what's happening here is so expressive and it's so bold. We just have these block harmonies happening after one another. You know, chord 1, chord 4, chord 1, all the minor and the subdominant minor, and here with the sevenths on top. So there's no tenutos here, and there's no diminuendos at all. So in the first time that we see this. So the flow of the music can remain uninterrupted. A second time, I'd recommend something different. But here, pushing the dynamic a little bit here. And here with your fingering, just making sure that each one of these little phrases is a legato, basically. So when we start on finger 3, so we don't run out of fingers. And then I kind of come under with 5. I use the pedal and come under with 5. And then you can come over 2 or 4 or 5 and 3. I come over 2 and 4, it's more comfortable. And then I just pass the note down on the D sharp. But either way, it doesn't really matter whether you come over with 3 and 5 or 2 and 5, 2 and 4. All that matters is that it's all joined up and it's all legato. Now let's talk about this. It's written expressive, and we have a tenuto over every note in the right hand and the top 2 notes in the left hand, which are written in different voices. So what he wants to hear is this counterpoint. That's what he wants to hear, this counterpoint. Now with the chord here at the bottom, because we're in extended position, make sure that you don't lose the bottom note. It's the foundation of our harmony. But the focus here is on the B to the A against the right hand. So make sure to voice that and make it nice and strong. And you can even break these to really give an independence to this counterpoint, if you want, or the other way. Just to really sell it. And then we have this writ that runs through, a long writ, and we have these 2 echoes up on top. So let's keep our dynamic strong. We're at a piano here. Still piano. And then it restates. Then we're at a pianissimo. So we're writting, but the note values increase. So the second time, softer and a little slower. Then we have this fermata in the middle of the bar, not on a note in the space in the bar. Here, this indicates that we need to clear our pedal and reset, and the whole music resets here. Now on the repeat, let's go through these subtle changes because they're very important and they're really going to sell our performance of the piece and create one long narrative journey, not just a section of music that's repeated twice. The change that we have is we have a dolce, where before in the first phrase we had expressive, we have a dolce. So before we were adding a little bit more weight to this bit, with the tenutos on top and the expressive with the inner melody. Here, we're going to pull back a little bit, give it a bit of space and a bit softer. Just make it a little sweeter, a little more dolce. Then the music continues the same throughout, so we're going to play as before. But in this phrase, our B phrase, something's a little bit different. Accelerando's in the same place, crescendo's in the same place, so the forward momentum's happening. The writ is written differently, and we have a diminuendo at the end. So before we didn't have the diminuendo, but here we're pulling back. And I'd suggest you can even bring the writ a little earlier, just to savour this kind of unravelling of the harmony. So here, where are we? here we start diminuendoing here. And here what I'd say, before we had a tenuto over the whole mark, here we don't, we have it over the A. So it suggests that this time he wants this resolution up onto the A emphasized. That's what that indicates. So we're rounding off the phrase slightly more and we're emphasizing that top A. Then we have a repeat, exactly the same. Nice and soft. Now what I choose to do here, and this is something a little bit extra that's not in the score, I choose to emphasize this section. It's the most expressive of the sections. It's the second time we've had it, and it's a very nice dramatic zenith, peak, apex of the piece before we tail off, before we cap it with a nice repeat of the opening section that's slightly sweeter and softer. So I choose to push the dynamics slightly further. So I'm over-interpreting this forzando. Also what's written here is a diminuendo at the end. So this phrase is rounded more. And we can think of the whole phrase having this tenuto over it, this whole long section here. So what this sounds like is something like this. Diminuendo. And then this last bit here has a tenuto over the phrase mark. Like that. So we can really tail off and give some space. The music is, as it's descending, and these harmonies are just fading away like this. Now, in this next bit, in the echo that comes, we have this expressive written just underneath the B resolving to the A. We can interpret this in a number of ways. This whole thing can be given a little bit more weight if we want. Like that, or we can actually emphasize the B resolving down to the A. Perhaps we think of it that way. We can bring that out. It'll create a nice contrast with the first time. That's a matter of personal taste. Personally, I prefer just to give the whole thing more weight, but if you want to add variety, you can voice the lower line the second time round if you want. Then we have this long rit, these bell-like fifths coming out. Slowing down, una corda pedal down, like this. Then we have a repeat of the beginning, only we have our dolce here, so this is going to be restrained, again, like it was the second time. At the very end, again we have this tenuto mark over this phrase, here, then two tenutos with a rit, and it's pianissimo. So we can use our una corda pedal if we want. Really soft. And there we go. It's nice and rounded. So that's almost everything I have to say in this video for the piece. It's a really beautiful piece. It's an incredibly poetic piece. If you have any questions about the piece, please do not hesitate to ask them down in the comment section below and I will get to them. Along with this video is a complete guide of the piece that runs through everything we talked about today and some stuff that we hadn't had time to get through in today's lesson. That is free, that's for you, and that's down in the description below. I do offer online classes, so if that is something that you're interested in, you can let me know. Depending when you see this video, I may or may not have any availability in my teaching schedule, as things are quite busy at the moment. But if you let me know, I'm sure we'll be able to arrange a consultation lesson and go from there. So that's it for this piece. Really pretty, really beautiful. If you haven't played Mompou before, I think this is a fantastic introduction to his music. Let me know how you get along with learning it. Good luck on your musical journey, and I'll see you in the next one.